So this was kind of this was the first, probably the first watercolor I ever did. But you know, I mean, I've worked in oils, I've worked in tempera, I've worked in acrylics. So it was a matter of learning the medium, and I mean, for me, this is kind of hard for me to look at because it's been about 4 years ago. But I was always interested in the translucency of glass and the way that it reflects light and the way it refracts light. And so especially in the top of this piece, all the abstract shapes. I mean, that's what I really love about the properties of glass and how the way if you put things behind it or put things in front of it, how it reflects that and distorts that those different colors. And this was probably one of the first big pieces that I did.
How big?
That's about probably 30. I take that back. It's about 30 and maybe 40 inches wide.
You always work that big?
I like to work that big. It's actually, if you want to paint realistically, it's easier to work that big. That's one of the reasons you see a lot of realistic painters. They work big. It's easier to work big because you can pull things apart, and it's just bigger to work with. It's just like if you worked on a car. If the car was a quarter of the size, it would be much more difficult to work on. So it's when you blow something up that is, say, by normal standards, 6 inches tall, and you make it 18 inches tall, now you have such a big subject that it's very easy to get to all the details. And that's one of the tricks that probably most photorealists will tell you that they do.
Can we ask questions while you're...
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Your background is very even.
Yes.
How do you get that?
A combination of things. I usually put a wash on. If it's not what I want it to be, like in this case, I threw a reddish. It's really kind of, now to me that looks red. Is that red?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Yes.
It's really orange. It's kind of being distorted by the
Oh, I see.
by the screen, and that backlit.
Yeah.
It's really closer to orange. So it depends what I want. In this case, I wanted a background that was had a little atmosphere to it, but I didn't really want to show too much in the way of brushstrokes.
Yeah.
And so I well, first of all, what I'll do is, you can't see my finger, around the silhouette of the top, all around the top, I'll mask that out. And this way I can go all over the place.
Do you do the background first then?
I always do the background first.
Okay.
Because if I work, the times that I've worked on things, what's in the foreground, when I do that, and then put in the background, I often have to make a tremendous amount of adjustments.
Yes.
Because once you throw that background, working against white really fools your eye.
Yes.
It's hard to tell how light and how dark it is. And then when you throw the color back there, it totally changes everything. So you have to, I found that for me, it's easier to work with the background first and then throw everything in.
Is that hot press?
I'm sorry?
Is that hot press?
Paper?
Paper.
Paper.
That is actually, that's almost everything here is illustration board. And I use a 500, I like Strathmore 500 series. And, but I've actually, the piece I'm going to be sort of demonstrating is the first time that I've worked in watercolor on a watercolor paper in a very, very long time. And I've kind of fallen in love with it's smooth, it's not quite hot press, but it's very soft.
What's the brand?
I'm sorry?
What's the brand?
It's French. It's I want to say Moulin Rouge, and it's 300 pound.
Oh, nice.
So it's expensive. It's about, I think I paid about $12 for a 22 by 30 inch sheet. So I only bought a couple because I wasn't sure if I was going to use them or if I was going to like them. So let's go to the next one. And it's kind of the same, kind of the same theory of, I got a little more into reflections here. And the background, actually I forgot to tell you, the background, while sort of sloshing it on pretty heavily, if I'm not satisfied with it, I'll pull out my old trusty airbrush and smooth it out. In fact, in that piece, the blue candy on the bottom, I used my airbrush to finish that up. And so, what's an airbrush? Seriously?
I'm stupid, okay.
No. That's it. An airbrush is,
It's an aerosol spray.
there you go. It's basically, it's something that's been around forever. Yeah, if you want to, it takes a little while to get used to using it. You have to have it, some type of air compressor, and you have what looks like a little gun, and it's got a little trigger on it. I use what they call what do they call it?
Fair Trembler.
So, I'm sorry.
Fair Trembler.
Oh, you mean the brand?
Brand.
Yeah, I don't. I have.
Spinner.
Oh, I don't.
Whitmore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it.
You're pretty traditional watercolor.
Yeah, but it's an interesting. When you go home,
I'll look it up.
look it up on the web and you see it. It's a little gun. It's a very interesting tool.
And then it moves in paint?
It sprays the paint. It's the finest. It's the finest little spray that you'll ever see. And
You put the paint in it?
yes,
Okay.
it's
Now I
usually
got
got a top. It's got a little top.
little makeup thing.
Yes, and you put
I'll look it up, I don't want to take a photo.
No. But and you can do it if you're looking for a real nice smooth finish. That's what they really a spray gun is what they spray paint cars with.
But you have to put mastic on everything to do
To
that.
cover it.
I don't.
No?
There's
How do you
ways
get
around
those
that.
bottles? I don't understand how you get the bottles with the background, with the white area. You know, the white on the bottles.
The bottle
He
tops.
said he's
Do you
masking.
masking?
Yes.
Do you mask?
Yeah.
You say that?
Yes, he said.
Well, usually what I do is I will mask the outline of those bottles or those jars, and then I will do my background. I'll usually give myself. I use quite a bit of mask. I'll usually give maybe about an inch of it and put it on because it doesn't. That's the thing that you do have to check about what surface you're putting it on because masking doesn't like a lot of surfaces. Sometimes when you go to take it off, it'll destroy your paper. So you don't want to use it on that. But the illustration board handles it very well, and actually that 300-pound watercolor paper, I used masking on a lot of that, and it handled it very well. In fact, I'll show you how I use it. So let's.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you're painting, are you looking at these kind of setup from life, or are you painting from photos, or what?
Good question. Big part of my process is photography. I'm big into photography. I'm not a good photographer, but I am over years of being, over 30 years of being a graphic designer, I'm a whiz with Photoshop. So I can save bad photography with Photoshop. And in fact, I'll show you a piece that I did just to let you see that most of the things that you see are not even close to the photographs that I work from. The photo is just kind of a jumping off point, and then I just, in order to get what I want. But I do work for photographs, that's usually my reference. And this is driving me crazy that this is all.
There you go. That's better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Perfect. Oh, I love that one.
That's a pretty big piece. And that one was where I, pretty much everything is done by hand. No masking on this one at all. It really kind of depends upon how I feel. And the background was kind of sloshed on, and then I finished it up with an airbrush, just to sort of get that smooth finish. And then, that's kind of a look that I was looking for. But then, if you look at when the lights come up, when you look at the Morgan Roadster over there, it's very obvious that that's watercolor. I'm slapping paint all over the place. So it really kind of depends upon the piece and what kind of mood I'm in, and who's paying for it. And so that's kind of similar. That whole background was done. I think I just went straight to an airbrush with that. And this is where I kind of, actually the other one was really, but I love the transparency of glass, but I wanted more color, so that's why I started with the candy, and then I started moving into using flowers. And here I'm kind of falling in love with patterns. So usually for me, one thing leads to another.
These are all large paintings, right?
This is about 24 by 24. This is a piece that I was definitely, you can tell, I set up a mason jar with candy in it. I was dropping water on it until I could capture the movement of the water. And so this was kind of a one and done, even though I liked it a lot, and probably will revisit it with other things.
So you dropped the water onto the jar
Yes,
and took the photo
yes.
and then reproduced what you saw. As opposed to, we just had someone who used to do a beautiful painting and then he would throw water on the
You can
painting.
do that. You can do that.
This is,
Sure.
this is the water in action on your, so you must have a super duper camera.
My camera's pretty good.
Yeah. To get
I
those
can't
spots.
say, let's put it this way, you've heard that the old story about it's the Indian, not the arrow,
Mhm.
that kind of screws up. So in my case, it's usually me who screws up and not the camera. But I probably had to take 50 photos and got a lot of water on the floor. Much to my wife was really thrilled about this one. But it worked out. I mean, I got what I wanted,
Yes.
but there wasn't many that were really usable. I had maybe one other choice, and I enjoy doing it. I don't know if I'll do another one like that, but we'll see. So here I'm falling in love with patterns again, and I really wanted the light or the colors to pop out of the darkness. As my wife would say, why is that glass on top with the ice in it?
You were cleaning up.
Exactly. That's what it looked like.
In 3 cups and 2 saucers.
So what?
I noticed that too.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
We noticed you had 3 cups, 2 saucers.
Oh,
There
Really?
There wasn't a yellow saucer.
you're right.
That was already in the sink.
But who likes symmetry?
No, it's wonderful. I feel like I want to go catch that.
Yeah, they
before
feel
it
like they're
falls.
going over at any time, don't they?
Patterns.
Right, so this I'm still falling in love with doing different colors and patterns, and this is probably the first piece I did in a long time that didn't somehow involve glass.
Is it on purpose that there's a figure in the reflection?
I'm sorry?
Is it on purpose that there's a figure in the reflection?
Yeah, that is I forget what you call that, but that was if you look at that whole cup and saucer,
Yeah.
there are figures. There are figures in
Oh,
that.
I see,
Yeah.
on the left, I see.
There's a figure on the left and there's a figure on the cup itself. So let's see if we can get over to, I want to show you the process of the piece that I'm going to, we're going to do a little demo on.
There's the car.
So there's the car, right? And it doesn't really kind of show that well, but every little bit is drawn. Left-hand side, it's just not showing up. And so, to me, the most important thing about watercolor painting, or any kind of painting, is your drawing. If you can't draw, or if you can't figure out a way to get your image down, you don't have a structure, you don't have a foundation to work from, especially if you want to work. If you want to work the way that I work, in a contemporary realist way, you have to be able to have a roadmap. Otherwise, you're just not going to get there. And it looks like the car's moving.
Did I get the
The car's going to take off.
Not really.
That's I think because it's probably on an angle. But the way I do it, even though you can't see it, does anybody know how to paint or to draw with the grid?
Yes.
Okay, that's the way I do it. I proportionally put my grid down, and that's the way I do it. And that probably took me maybe about 2 hours to do. And that piece is, I think, about 20 by 30. And so I start from there, drop in my my background.
Wow.
Now that is,
Wow.
yeah, that's about. Now I kind of jumped ahead. That I've kind of forgot to take photos because I try to take them step by step. Because this piece took about 13 days to get to where it is, and around 42, 43 hours. And I usually don't write everything down. The only reason I did was because I was coming here to give you an idea. And it's certainly not the way that, it's not for everybody, but it's the way that that I work. And I knew also that there are, in any realistic piece, there are portions of it that are, if you don't hit it and just get it perfect, it's not going to look realistic. So I knew that bumper was essential. That grill without masking would be it would be so slow to do that grill. It'd take me a week to do that grill. Instead, it took me a day. Or maybe a day. When I say a day, I don't usually work more than 3 or 4 hours on a piece.
So you use masking,
I do use masking, sometimes.
and you finish each section completely before you go to the next section.
Yes, but there's always an adjustment. You go to the next section and finish that section, it has an effect on the previous section.
Right.
So you're always adjusting, just like you would do with any painting. You're always making an adjustment to something you've just done. If you put too much yellow one place, well, now I need a little blue down here. So you're always making adjustments, but for the most part, yeah, 90% is pretty, it's done about, I would say about 95% of it is done when I move on to the next section. And so now I've done the windshield. What did I do there?
The right-hand side.
Oh, you're good, because I didn't even see it. Yeah, the right-hand side. I think also the headlight. So I did the headlight. That's another thing too, that those headlights are extremely important. And that Chevy emblem, if that doesn't look real, then nothing is gonna look real. A lot of times, if I did the headlights really well, and I did the Chevy insignia on the badge on the front, if I get the grill and the fender really well, I can cakewalk home from here. Because it is, everything else, even if I don't do it very well, it's gonna fall into place because that stuff is gonna catch everybody's eye.
If you use masking on that car,
Yes.
how do you keep the edges from looking so hard that they look like they've used masking? You know what I mean?
No, you can soften it. You can soften an edge.
Just soften it with a little water?
Yep. In that case, I didn't. But I'll show you how to use masking. Masking, you know, the masking fluid is, if you've ever used it, and I'm sure you have, it kind of has a little bit of mind of its own.
It does.
It doesn't like to go where you want it to go. It's even worse than watercolor. So if you're going to do a real fine section, like that grill,
Yep.
you have to have another way to do it than use a brush. And I'm going to show you that.
Okay.
Da-da-da. So, what do we do there? We did a tire.
The wheel well.
We did a tire and a wheel well. Very good.
Is this a test?
Yes, it is.
I feel like
Yes, it is, because I can't remember. And I think this is the last one. No, it's not. So there were a lot of, in fact, I took this photo at a car show, and so the car next to it was reflecting on the side of the car. And that's where we are today. So what I'm going to do today is, it might look finished, just only because everything else is finished, really. This area up here, we're going to darken that in, and this area here. Otherwise, you would be the most bored people in the world if you watched me paint the whole thing. And this area here, the shadow area, which I kind of like, but it doesn't go with the rest of the piece. I'm going to probably put maybe 3 or 4 more layers on that, and probably wind up airbrushing the bottom. So it looks, being that this whole piece is kind of, you know, realistic. But
What about the license plate?
the license plate. Well, the license plate, the owner of this piece hasn't told me what they want to put on it yet. So I will put anything they want on it. As long as it goes in the guidelines of the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Division.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm sure you don't make mistakes, but when
I do make mistakes.
How do you, you're working in such detail, how do you correct it without messing up something around?
Well, one of the ways, and I'm going to show you, you see how this, that right lower side below the, you know, where I said I'm going to work on?
Yes.
I go on, I open or I start with a very light color. Never go in, you see the reds, those deep reds and everything? Never start that way. Never. It's a lot of that. I'm going to say that red and those blues that are in the fender and those tires. There's probably about 10 layers of color, easily. I mean, that's the way you get a real deep, rich color. And usually, you really can't see it here, maybe later you can take a look at it, but I hate black tires. So you can see that there's color in those tires.
Do you use Payne's gray?
Pardon?
Do you use Payne's gray?
I don't use gray.
So you create that dark from.
I don't use black and I don't use gray.
You use what?
I don't use black and I don't use gray.
Okay, so how?
I make my own black.
Okay.
And then I water down my black to get my gray. And I'll show you that too. I really hate the flat sort of dead color of black out of a tube. Black out of a tube for me doesn't work at all. If you make your own black, you can make it warm, you can make it cold, you can really give it a lot more life than a regular black has. Now let me show you, when I said I use Photoshop for a lot of things. So usually that photo, and here's my reference photo. We'll show you, see that guy in the background?
Yeah.
He's not gonna like these in this picture. But I don't, I didn't want that background. So, let's see if we can, this thing is kind of, okay. This is a photo, and maybe you can tell me where it is. Is anybody a golfer? There you go. So this is a photo that I took in St. Andrews. However, as my wife said, I'm a big cheater. Not in the traditional sense. That's what I wanted. I wanted a real dramatic photo, and I can't get this thing to sort of center. But so I'm probably a bigger golf nut than I am an art nut. So we went to Scotland a couple of years in a row, and both times I went to play St. Andrews, and just had the time of my life. But this is the real photo.
Oh,
That's the photo that I took.
that is cheating.
Yeah.
No.
So you ever see
Beautiful
really
style.
dramatic photos of the
Yeah.
photographer's taking?
They are fixed.
I can guarantee you 99% of the time,
The sunsets, yeah.
yeah, they're played with. And so if you want something really dramatic, that's what I'll do. I'll just play with it and change it in Photoshop. I can put a hole in the sky.
With the whole sky.
I'm crushed.
But it can look like that.
I want to paint that sky.
Yeah, it is. In fact, that sky did exist in another photo that I took in Scotland, in Crail, which is only 5 miles or 5 kilometers down the road. And I said, wouldn't this sky look great over St. Andrews?
Sure.
And so I did take that photo of the sky. It just wasn't in this picture.
But you don't have the shadows on the grass from that big cloud.
Well, that cloud is, you have to spoil everything, don't you? That cloud is a long way away.
I always want a dramatic sky, and I always think of those shadows.
Yeah, I can't move this,
You
can't
just
move,
work
for
with
some
two
reason it's kinda
photographs
stuck.
and paint it.
I'm sorry.
You can't just work with 2 photographs and paint it in there. I mean, why do you have to create?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat that again.
Can you work with 2 photographs and just do the first one and then paint that cloud in?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, but you never know what it's gonna look like.
Okay. so-
See, what I will do now is, let's say I have 40 or 50 hours into a painting, and I decide that, I got a little time invested, right? So, let's say this is what I have, and I want to try to see what a background might look like. I'll create that background. I'll take a photograph of the painting that I'm working on, bring it into Photoshop, try the background that I want, and see if it works before I mess up my painting. 90% of the time, it gives me a real idea of what it's going to look like. There are times that I've changed it and it hasn't worked, but it's infinitely, you know, like when I said, if I've got 50 hours involved in the painting, I'm not going to go willy-nilly and just try something and go, oh my God, I just messed it up. So there's, you know, we live in, where are we, 2019? So we can be 2019 painters.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I hope it doesn't sound stupid, but why not just take a photo
Of?
of whatever you're, instead of painting? What is the challenge for you in doing it in watercolor? Like, why are you doing that? I'm just trying to understand why you wouldn't just have a gorgeous photo that you took.
Oh, okay. Well, it's actually much different. The painting is much different than the photograph. And besides, it's a lot more fun.
Okay. Is there a goal in your realism? I don't know what you said, something realism, to not really show the brush strokes? Is that something you aim to not let them show
No.
so much?
Sometimes, but most times, I want it to be realistic, but at the same time, when you move close to it, I want you to see that it's a painting.
Okay.
And that's it. And we'll go over there. In Chelsea.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you, before I do this, we're going to have a little test first.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we're going to have a little test. Does anybody know what this is?
Ruling pen.
Who said that? So you're a graphic designer?
No, but when I started working, I worked in the textile field and I was doing plants, moldings.
Oh, really? With a ruling pen?
It was a ruling pen in one way and then,
Oh, God bless you.
and then the spray with the rest. Yep.
So this is something that they used to use before, back in the day, before they had pens of different sizes. So you could, granted, once you get to that width, it's almost impossible to keep the ink from splattering all over the place. But what you can do with this is, you close it up a little bit, and I'm going to show you now, but you put your masking in here. Takes a little time to get used to it, and this is, I don't think it's more than $4.
Yeah.
But you can make the thinnest little line possible with it.
And what is that called again?
A ruling pen.
Thank you.
And I saw Terry Duval using this because he does a lot of, the thing that is really sort of magical about his work is he will do buildings that are maybe what seem like a half a mile away, and you can see little windows in the buildings. And that's where he gets how he uses his lines, is by using a ruling pen. And when I saw him use a ruling pen, I hadn't seen one of these since I was a beginning graphic designer. So let's see if I can do it. Because it's not, it does take a little bit of a, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing.
Your head's in the way.
My big head's in the way?
That's it.
Is that working now? Okay. I can't promise you that my head's not going to get in the way again.
Let me zoom in on it too.
Yeah. So my wife says, there's no head that big.
Did I just move it?
You trying to cyber house things?
Try running your finger over it.
Is that masking fluid?
Yeah, it's masking fluid. It seems like maybe it got, maybe it kind of got thick. And if you do, I don't know how many of you use masking fluid. but it kind of helps if you get the, well, this stuff is really thick. If you get the blue kind, or kind with any color.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you shake up the bottle, close it first? No, don't do that. Excuse me?
No, you're right, that's a good idea.
Sorry about that.
Usually, what do you call it? Usually I shake it without putting the lid back on.
And your wife appreciates that too.
Oh yeah, she appreciates a lot of things I do. So maybe I'll just overload it and then we'll get it to go down to the bottom.
You put, did you say you put soap or something on that too?
You can put soap on there, being that,
Head to the side. Oh, I thought you were.
excuse me?
We're getting the top of your, at least you have hair up there.
Okay. So you can see that, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, like I said, it can be a little challenging at first. So I put some lines down here already, but
Oh, his head's away again, right?
No, I can see his hand. Yeah.
that's not working. Believe me, it does work sometimes. There's always something that doesn't go right.
Seems every time I know I'm going to use masking fluid, I have to buy a new bottle.
It does dry out, and I was just thinking that I probably had this jar open yesterday for too long a period of time.
But that's another tool we can go and buy. Because we need another tool.
Did my head get in the way of that?
That looked good. That looked good.
Okay, so you can see how thin you can go. And if you get really good with it, you can make circular lines too. It doesn't have to be a straight line. You just have to get it down. You have to get the masking to sort of cooperate with you. But so what I'm going to do is, real quick, I don't use a regular palette. And I usually don't, being that I don't have, I'm not usually working, if I were working plein air, I would probably use a regular palette, but I'm going to make black.
And that was?
That was, I'm sorry, burnt umber. You can use any kind of dark green. It's usually green that has a heavy concentration of blue.
A little further on.
Oh, are we off the, I'm tough to rein in, John. Yeah.
Perfect, that would be perfect.
Dark.
Very important item,
That
right?
we have, that we have.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know about that one.
Do you have any preference in watercolors?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any brand preference in watercolors?
Whatever's on sale. As long as it's professional and not the student kind. Yeah, I really don't. I've got Rembrandt here. I've got, I actually, if I can catch it on sale, I like Winsor Newton the best. No, I really don't, for me, I can't, there may be other people who are more sensitive to using this Prussian blue.
The red, what color red?
The red was vermilion, and I actually shouldn't have put that down.
You don't use the red?
I do, but I use,
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a different one.
I can never, I always call it alley crimson.
Elizabeth.
There you go, I can't say that.
I love that word.
That's not in my vocabulary.
Do you like to put music on when you paint?
Oh, yeah. That's my laptop is loaded with iTunes, and I love to listen to jazz, and I always get yelled at for playing my music too loud. So, my wife can be a real party pooper sometimes.
He's got blue, green, what are all these dark colors on his palette? Second it's not exactly
So do you make a stock black that you keep?
I'm sorry.
Do you make a stock black that you keep?
You could do that. I know people who do that. They'll make a big jar of it. I don't.
Yeah, it's a blue.
Only because I kind of like my blacks to be a little different.
what?
It's blue.
Oh, thank you.
I only have 3 colors written down. What are the other 2 colors?
What colors do you have written down?
A umber, a dark green leading to blue, and alizarin crimson.
Prussian blue,
Okay.
and that's pretty much it. You can make a really nice black with that. A lot of people like to use the alley crimson, the Prussian blue, any kind of really dark green. You don't want a green that's kind of on the yellow side. You want a darker, more on the blue side. And a lot of people love to put all the earth colors, throw all the earth, burnt umber, raw sienna. They throw all those in. You can make a great blue or a great black just when you clean your palette. Right? I mean, it all comes out, it all turns into black at the end if you run them all together. So, I mean, I usually I like the Prussian blue, so I'll start with blue. And it kind of depends because the table that I have at home kind of leans to the left a little bit. So everything winds up in that corner. But, and see, to me, this is, but I have to be careful because for me, that almost looks brown. And now when I pull it out, I can see that this is burnt umber. But that's where my color deficiencies kind of whack me out sometimes. And really what I get to is really not necessarily a black. I mean, what do you see there?
Purple.
You still seeing purple? See, I'll go with that.
I see black. Now I see.
What do you see now?
Dark brown purple. I see dark purple.
When you mix up a large batch of your color, do you have proportions that you use in the mix?
No. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. Most of the times. For me, what I see here is good enough for me to go if I want black. Because I'm going to put so many layers down that eventually I find black. It may not start as black, but it'll get there. And so I don't worry about that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paint this area that I just put the masking on.
Could you move it to the left?
I'm not really doing anything other than putting, can you see that?
Yes.
You always work with a small brush.
Do you have larger brushes?
I do, but you know what, I use the, I don't really use brushes that large, unless when I use to do the background. But unfortunately, I put this in the masking.
Oh.
So, duh. So my wife would say, real smart.
And your paper is what weight?
I'm sorry.
What weight is your paper?
The painting is on 300 pound. So if you had an area that you wanted to paint and you needed just some white sections, you could use the ruling pen to get that. And you would never be able to do it, really doesn't matter what color this is, but you would never be able to do it with a brush. So you can really kind of see, you can see where the lines are, right?
Yes.
So when that dries, I'm gonna put this on the side for a couple minutes. When that dries, it will, you're gonna have white lines, real thin white lines. You try to do that by hand. That's why that ruling pen, if you have any, probably never used it with any of these. Probably never used it with that, but when I went to using, doing cars, being that they're mechanical and they're straight lines and they're round lines and they're oval lines, if I wanted to look in any way real, you have to, you got to be precise. I mean, when you're painting a flower, you can get away with a lot. So I'm going to put this over here to dry. What else did I want to talk about? Well, we all know about coffee, right? Where not to put your coffee? Which I've yet to learn yet. I have probably 30 or 40 of these. Of course, usually they're worthless because the circle and the ellipse that you need is never the right size. So I use this for drawing most of my lines.
Oh, okay.
Do you, everybody knows what this is?
No.
So it's a bendable, and you can bend this in any shape you want, and probably the tires, now it's not perfect, it certainly isn't perfect, but it is so much more precise than if I were to paint it. Tell me if my head gets in the way.
And what is that called?
Yeah, what is it called?
French curve.
Oh, now no, this is not a French curve.
Flexible.
Yeah, if you run a search for a flexible ruler, it'll come up. I got this at, you guys go to Jerry's?
Yes.
Jerry's has it. Even though the time that I went there, he didn't have it. And I went all the way from Morris Plains to South Orange and he didn't have it. But, so that's kind of, if I want to draw that line on that ellipse, it's not perfect. I mean, I can play with it for a long time, but you can see how close I can get. And it's infinitely better than trying to do it with your hand. So if you want to be precise with something, this is a great tool. These bendable I haven't, in fact, I had so many of these, I've lost so many over the years, and I just bought this one recently. But these are great if you happen to get lucky. They never work. They never work because I never have that size. White areas. If you cover a white area that you didn't by accident, that you wanted it to be a white area, what do? Pardon?
Lift it.
Okay, but can you ever get that white back?
Yes, Mr. Clean's eraser.
No way.
Mr. Clean,
Magic
magic eraser. I didn't want to do the bottom. I took that, if they weren't staining colors. But I took it, and I couldn't.
It works. It works for you?
Destroy the paper.
But how about the texture of the paper?
It didn't touch it, it was fine.
You can paint over that area if you wanted to?
Yes.
Oh, I've got to try that because I've never found anything that that really works. Because my question is, will you go over it with gouache or will you go over it with acrylics?
Well, acrylics you can't paint over with watercolors.
Oh, sure you can.
No, you can't.
Oh, sure you
have
can.
to use-
There's acrylics in all of these. In fact, there is.
Well, not for our Chatham show. Our Chatham show is all transparent watercolors,
Well, if
no
you're going by
gouache.
the AWS, and if you're going by the transparency, what is that, the Transparency Watercolor Association of Russia, or whatever it is? I think they're a bunch of Nazis, to be honest with you. I mean, you can use, I'm not a big believer in, if you want to open up something that you painted over and you can't get it back to white,
Yeah,
use anything you can.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, transparency will tell you,
Well, yeah.
they will put up the
We have,
cross.
one of our shows usually it's a transparent, but
Okay,
I
okay.
think AWS used to only be transparent back in the day also, but now they accept acrylic and almost any water.
Yes.
Oh, do they really?
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
you can enter now.
Well,
So are you gonna tell us how you do it?
do what?
So you would use acrylic.
Get back.
You can't get back to white. The only way you can get back to white is if you use gouache, about 10 layers of it, or you can use a white acrylic, and
Or Mr. Clean Eraser.
I'm going to try Mr. Clean Eraser. I've never tried that.
Don't use too
It
much
can't be an
water.
off-brand, it has to be Mr. Clean.
And use the original.
What are you a representative for Mr. Clean?
And Sun stuff, Sunny stuff.
I think technically it actually
I mean, we're
has
always
bleach.
sharing our deep dark secrets with you.
Oh, and I'm not sharing anything with you?
Yes, you are.
Okay, we can do that.
Oh, gosh. So, what else did I s- Oh, let me try this. It's probably dry by now. So if your fingers are clean, like mine are not, you can just kind of... Uh-oh. It's not exactly dry.
You can't use Mr. Clean on tiny areas. Don't use it on
So other than the fact that I shouldn't have done that, you could see...
We learn by mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I told you I wasn't patient. So, you know, look how fine those lines are. Are we almost done? 10 minutes? Want me to tell us a few jokes? So, a priest and a rabbi walk into a bar.
Is there anything else on your list there?
I was going to show you a little bit of painting, but that's going to take too much time. Did we do okay? We learned a few things? I learned a few things.
Now, when you do apply black, do you try and, I noticed that you really made it one color. Do you try sometimes to have blues and browns and?
You mean when I'm mixing my black?
Yeah,
Yeah, you could do that. In fact, if you let it separate,
right.
it will become that by
It
itself.
makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I kind of like, that's why I don't mix, there's, I'm trying to think of his name, Lauren, he's a terrific watercolor artist. I'm trying to remember his name. He mixes, in fact, I stole from him how he mixed his
You learned
black.
from him, yes.
Yeah, same thing. But he was very generous. He puts it online. And he mixes a big jar of it. And when he does a lot of black backgrounds, and he puts it on very thick. So he only has to use one layer. I'll put multiple layers. Maybe some, in fact, the one thing I learned about the 300 pound, it absorbs a lot of paint.
Yeah.
It's beautiful paper, but it will absorb a lot of paint.
Now, I'm wondering about your tire there. Obviously, it's not flat black. The center is, the deep part is dark. But how did you keep that white for the reflection or whatever?
Just in paper.
Just, okay.
Yeah, no, that wasn't,
It wasn't that many layers.
yeah, I didn't realize that was still up.
You're not in the depth, so.
Well,
That's the camera from the table.
Oh!
That's camera right, camera left.
We talked about preparation H. Unfortunately, I can't get those products anymore. I used to be able to get them for cost.
Oh, that's,
Now when I need them, I can't get them.
now you're old enough.
Right. Since they threw me out the door, they don't want to give them to me anymore.
I'm still looking at your tire. Your tire, you used masking fluid for the whites in the circle, in the round, and the rim.
Here?
Yeah.
I did not.
Oh, okay.
That is all kind of blocked in very lightly. And I was planning to darken that in today to show you, which I could probably show you a little bit. How much time do we have?
5 minutes.
5 or 10.
Oh, I could do a lot in 5 minutes. So,
Turn your clock ahead, Jane.
Oh, right. I did.
Just zoom out just a little bit.
Good.
this, by the way, is...
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. This is the original board that I use to put my hand down so I don't,
Yeah.
right? And every board that I use, I keep for posterity. You believe that?
No.
Good, don't believe it. So, but what I do is I also, now in this case, and I don't normally do this, I write down every day and how many hours I put in.
Oh, wow.
And that's just, but this is, for me, this is essential because, especially when you're working over an area, I usually work, except for the background from left to right because I'm a righty. And the more you want to stay off of the areas that you've already finished, the better off you are. And
Now, before you do that, do you want me to zoom in a little bit more on that rim? Or is it okay as is? Okay, go ahead.
we have left off? So, I mean, I would just, this area just needs to be darkened now. I mean, you do kind of need a steady hand. And that's pretty much all you need. And I will make this, you know, any kind of like aluminum, like the, it's gonna pick up, you know, it's gonna pick up a lot of, there's gonna be a lot of white in it. If you come and look at this after we're done, this, you'll actually see the buildings in the fender that were across the street.
I see a cat.
You see what?
A cat on the right side. It's a Rorschach test.
You see a cat?
Yes, on the right side.
Darkest color.
You didn't do any drugs before you came here, did you?
Got some?
Nah. But this is basically, you know, I will do it light. I mean, you know, somebody said, what do you do when you make a mistake? Now there are, and it kind of escapes me now. There was one time where I totally ruined, well, I shouldn't say ruined, but I wanted to change the bottom of the painting. And there's a ground that you can put on it that will completely cover it, and you can paint over it. Pardon?
Is it called watercolor ground?
It could be called, it makes sense, yeah.
Who said that? It's a ground in watercolor. It's called
Yeah.
watercolor ground.
It sounds right. Sounds right.
Smith, maybe?
Okay, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of very, what's the word for it?
Amazed?
I've been amazed, yes, but not by this. I'm trying to think of the, skeptical, there's the word. And it actually works terrific. I wouldn't want you to use it because it usually means that you've made quite a mistake. And, you know, it's going to kind of be a lot of work, but it does work.
And who is that by?
It might be Daniel Smith.
Yeah, I think it is Daniel Smith.
Winsor Newton has one too.
One of them they call liquid paper, I think.
You know, a lot of that sounds all familiar. You know, the older you get, who the hell remembers? So,
What's your name?
What's my name?
and I would basically do that to the whole area. Now that's going to dry a little bit lighter,
That's true.
but it, you know, this painting has, I would say, this area, and doing the bottom, I've got maybe 5 hours left in it.
You use such a small brush. I'm surprised it doesn't take you 100 years.
You'd be surprised. The bigger the brush, the more the mistakes. So, yeah, this is a number 2. Actually, this is not the one that I use the most. I didn't even bring the one that I use the most. What I love, if you've got to draw a straight line, these liner brushes
Yes.
are terrific. In fact, this is a long round, and I learned this from the liner brushes are used by guys and women who do a lot of graphics on, say, the tanks of motorcycles for drawing straight lines by hand. And I just thought that would be impossible to work with that. But it's actually a great tool. Also, as far as brushes is concerned, you can go out and buy expensive brushes, but I don't think you need to. I mean, Kolinsky brushes are beautiful, and I've got a whole bunch of them that I love, but I can't find them. So, you know, Princeton are like $2 and $3. I don't see any reason why you should have to go out and spend $30 or $40 on a Kolinsky brush that you're going to lose. At least I know that I've lost.
It holds a lot of water, but it doesn't have, like, the blends are, they hold body, they have more body to them or something.
They hold a point. They hold a lot of watercolor. You can paint a long time with them, But I don't know if they're worth, I guess it's up to everybody's individual, whether they think it's worth that or not. That's
Thank
it.
you. That's it.
Thank you.